If you're running a business or working in sales and you are experiencing anxiety, you're not alone. Working in sales or running your own business is one of the toughest things you can possibly do, and it is a roller coaster of emotions. You can go from the depths of depression to the heights of exhilaration within 24 hours, and you need to have strong processes to make sure that you can get through it. For me personally, my journey in sales started relatively early on. I finished university and I went straight into a sales role. But going into my first sales job, I was given a phone, I was given a target, and I was told to hit it. And through that process, that baptism of fire, as you will, I made every possible mistake and learning, and I'm still making mistakes and learning to this day. But you come in there, you've got this big target, you start making outreach to hit that target, and then you feel like you're going to get nowhere near it. You start to get down on yourself. You start to get negative. There'd been times early on in my first ever sales gig where I was 80% short of my target with only a week left. And you can't sleep at night. You walk in the morning, you're almost perspiring in the middle of winter at 8 o'clock because you're so worried about hitting your target, and you're so taken out of the actual moment thinking about the outcome or what's going to happen in 2 or 3 weeks, that you're all pent up, you're stressed, you're not enjoying yourself, you're unhappy. So from time to time, when you look too far down the path and you think about, the negative side of what things can be, that can really provoke your anxiety and can really put you in a bad state of mind. And this is a continuous battle that I'm continually fighting myself over my 15, 16 year working career to date. Now, having emotions is a thing that you can never completely get rid of, and you don't want to get rid of your emotions completely. You don't want to become a Iceman that's completely detached from their emotions. All I'm saying is, when your emotions run wild, it can really have an impact on you, and it can have an impact on your mental health. And I've seen a lot of people struggle from mental health issues in the sales game. I've seen people scull bottles of wine so they can sleep at night. I've seen people, go out and they're going to miss their target, and they go and gamble because they try and make up their target, but they end up worse off. So what I've learned over this time is there are things that you can do to handle your emotions and try and keep them in check. The first thing is preparation, okay? And preparation for a day working in sales, or preparation as a business owner. Both are relatively similar in that you're just trying to get your mind ready. You're trying to get mentally prepared for any given day where a bunch of problems is going to get thrown at you and you're going to have to fix them. So a few things that I do. First of all, I don't always get this with a young family, but I know that sleep does help. One thing I've always said is that those hours you get before midnight are worth multiple hours after midnight. If you're staying up after midnight and going to bed at 1 or 2 a.m., those hours sleep in those early hours of the morning aren't as, in my opinion, beneficial. And I'm no doctor, I'm no scientist, but aren't as beneficial as the ones before midnight. If you can clock a few hours before midnight and get a good night's sleep, you're mentally going to be just a little bit more ready for the next day. The next thing is diet. So what you're putting into your body. One thing I try and do is, when I'm working during the day, I fast. I don't eat breakfast. And I tend to start the day with an iced black coffee, depending on how hot or cold it is. And what I also do later in the day is I'll have something like just pure eggs, just protein during the day, just to keep myself going. And I'll eat a bit more food at night. I find that too much food during the day, I find that it spikes my blood sugar levels, and I end up crashing in the afternoon and I become unproductive. And if you're unproductive, I feel like you're better off just being out and about, going for a run or something like that, as opposed to being in the office, because you're not putting forward your best work. The next thing is exercise. So I love going to the gym in the morning, don't always get to do it, but if I can get out there and run or lift some weights, or push some weights, get some testosterone flowing through my body, or run, get those endorphins flowing, I feel phenomenal. So the second last thing when it comes to health is looking at recovery. Now, I'm not an athlete. I wish I was. I love my sport, but I'm not an athlete. The one thing I really enjoy is the saunaing, and from time to time ice bathing. I find that hot and cold immersion, hot immersion releases plasmas in your blood that just make you feel phenomenal. I think it has been scientifically proven to make you live longer. And jumping in like an ice bath or swimming in a really cold pool or in the ocean, that just makes you feel alive. And I know that there's lots of other additional health benefits from that. So when I can get a sauna in, we're lucky, we're blessed here. We've got the Sales Inc. office, we got one playground next to us, and we got a full-blown recovery center, so we can duck off for a sauna, whenever we get a small amount of bandwidth. So I'm a big proponent for saunas. The last thing is substances and alcohol. I don't mind a glass of wine. From time to time, I might indulge in a glass of red wine. But one thing I don't do anymore that I used to do a lot of is binge on weekends. I used to drink in excess on weekends and thrash myself. And as a result of drinking to excess on weekends, my sleep would be off. And as a result, I'd come in not ready on a Monday, and then I'd get stuck in a vicious cycle. That thing alone is probably what really, really provoked my anxiety, because you start behind the curve, it's hard enough to begin with, and then the day just eats you alive. So what I've learned is to not binge anymore. If there's a Bucks weekend or a special moment to celebrate, I try and keep a lid on it. Not always guaranteed. But on top of that, if I have a glass of wine or something during the week, it might just be 1, 2 max. So those are all the sort of things I do physically to try and get ready for the day. Also from a mental standpoint, I like to get some breaths in. If I can get in 30 good breaths and hold my breath in between, I find that can really center me for the day. And when I'm really going through it, I'll look to carve out some time to do that, and then look at what I'm grateful for, put that down, write that down, put that out there, and then put what I want to achieve that day out there in the universe. Now, once I've sort of done my preparation and got in there for the day, I'm trying to, get myself in the right frame of mind so I can create momentum. We have a few mantras that we have here at Sales Inc. We've got 10 values, and one of the values is build the process and stay in the moment. Now, building the process and stay in the moment, what we mean by that, any client strategy, any Sales Inc. strategy, anything we do, we are very forensic with what we do. We document everything. We build the process. We then execute on that process. Now, while we're executing on that process, we know the outcomes are going to come, and we stay in the moment. I'll give you some examples. When I used to work with Ed, I had a company called Market Matters, which I founded with 2 other co-founders. Every month we'd chase these lofty targets, 80, 100, 150,000 in revenue. And you'd be 2 or 3 weeks in and to the month, and you're only 20% of the way there. You think, how on earth am I going to get there? And the anxiety beast would come out again. But you'd just turn up and you'd push, and about 60 to 70%, sometimes more, of our revenue came in the last week of the month. And we pretty much always got there. We barely ever missed. And that was all attributed to the fact that just build the process, stay in the moment. Now, the other thing is as well, when it comes to anxiety, one of the values we have here and a mantra we have here is we always operate with high levels of integrity. We don't tell lies. We play straight bats. We tell the truth for better or for worse. What that allows us to do, it allows us to keep turning up, feel proud of ourselves, know that like our children will be proud of us, know that we've done the right thing, we've done it the right way, we haven't been unsavory, we haven't tried to undercut anyone. But outside the day-to-day execution, the other thing that you've always got to do is you've got to enjoy the journey. It's not always about the destination. Once you get to the destination, you're going to want to go to the next destination. So if you enjoy that process, enjoy the journey. Now, I've got to admit, early on, I didn't always enjoy the journey. Sometimes I was just so caught up in my own world that I was thinking about the outcome. I was anxious. I wasn't always enjoying the journey. But now, one thing I've really learned is you've got to enjoy the journey. It's the camaraderie. It's the people you meet along the way. It's the wins that you get with your team that make it all worthwhile. Once you get to that end point, you're going to want to go to the next end point. So, you've got to enjoy the journey, as I said, and build the process and stay in the moment. And the last thing you've got to do that does help is just along the way as you get your little wins, you've got to celebrate these little wins. You've got to toast to the fact that, you've just renewed one of your clients because you've just done such a good job. You've got to toast to the fact that you've just got your client a really big win that's going to really put them on the map. You've got to toast to the fact that you've brought on a great team and they're executing at such a high level for you. You've got to toast to the fact that you've got a 250,000 YouTube followers and you've just got to enjoy the process along the way. That's my take on anxiety and how I've tried to put the right foundations in place so it's less of a problem for me. I'm definitely not Superman. I feel it as well. And if you're out there feeling it, you're not alone. You just got to keep going and you've got to put the right mechanisms in place to give you the best possible chance to succeed. Thanks for watching.